in the room. It's just a recorder and that's it. By now, I hope you all know that this one is busted. And this is also a really good point to bring up, is that not all digital reporters are created equal. There are very low-cost providers out there that are doing probably what I would think is a bad idea of just putting a recorder out there with no professional officiant or anything like that. Those are going to give you the same quality as the courtroom. But a proper digital reporter would be a professional officiant in the room, swearing people in, monitoring the equipment, etc. This is so key. If they just send you a recorder for your deposition or like set up an iPad or something, find a new one. That is not a good option. Alternative capture methods have security issues. This, given the sensitive information contained in many depositions, it is critical that no matter what the capture method, it is secure every step of the way. And we see this with stenographic reporters. Well, is it the same with digital reporting? It is. A proper digital reporter's process should meet or exceed all industry standard security policies. This includes end-to-end encryption, HIPAA and PII compliance, just to name a few. So it needs to be just as secure as a stenographic reporter's workflow. Alternative capture methods are less expensive. Well, like I said, you may have heard of some super low-cost providers out there where I think they just set up an iPad at your deposition or something, but I would be leery of that. Generally, those are not meeting all the requirements that we have been talking about. Because in fact, a proper digital reporter is going to do all the work that's done to coordinate, manage, record, transcribe, securely transfer, store. All of that is the same. The only thing that's changed is the method of capture, but the skill and professionals involved are just as valuable to the process. Which takes us into our next one. Digital reporters are not professional. And this is a worry to some attorneys, and rightfully so. I mean, you're going to have your client there, opposing counsel, maybe an expert. I mean, a deposition is no place for an untrained, unprofessional technician. And thankfully, with a proper digital reporter, this is busted. A proper digital reporting agency or company provides vets every digital reporter, ensuring that the highest level of professionalism is met. And in addition to industry certifications and technical savviness. So very big key one. And then our last myth, alternatively captured transcripts are not as accurate. If you learn nothing else from this CLE, I hope that you take away that this one is busted. Current technology provides for more sensitive and more accurate microphones. In conjunction with trained technicians and individually mic'd participants, this results in better clarity recordings, ensuring you get an accurate record. So, why don't we go ahead and take a question break here before we dive into our next section. So hopefully I have my colleague Rebecca on the line. Is there any questions, Rebecca? And keep in mind, if we miss your question, we will address it later on.
You know, Mike, we haven't gotten any questions yet.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Either I'm doing a great job teaching or everyone's asleep. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we'll truck on ahead. Which takes us into our next section here. I keep mentioning about, not all digital reporting providers being created equal. You have various levels of, quality and service, and depending on the agency. So this section is just things to remember, or questions for your vendor, things to think about when you're looking for a digital reporter. So the first one is, are there individual mics per person? This one is imperative. If you want a clean recording, if you don't want things to be missed, every person has to have their own lapel microphone, not just an iPad setup, not just a video camera. It's really got to be key. Is there someone in the room, and are they professional? I think we've talked a lot about this, but it is going to be critical. You don't want an unmonitored recording. Then you'll be back in the same with courtrooms. You want somebody there monitoring it, swearing people in, running it like a professional deposition. It's important to confirm the turnaround time. Some of the things we see other low-cost providers doing is ship the recordings offshore for transcription. Not only leads to lower quality, but can also lead to longer turnaround times, even security issues. So you would definitely want to ask that. Do I need language for my notice? They may not always have the answer for you. I mean, ultimately, it is you and the attorney's responsibility. But one of the things that we're able to do is see a lot of notices, and we can kind of share what we have seen out and about. So I think that's a good question to have. How are readbacks handled? You want to make sure that they have the ability to do a readback, or in digital reporting sense, a playback. And you also want to make sure that the speakers are identified properly, and so that everything will be transcribed properly. Do they have redundant systems? In my opinion, this one is critical, actually, for any reporter. We know that computers break. It happens to everybody. So they need to have multiple recording devices so that if something happens to the main system, you're not going to lose your record. You need a completely separate and redundant system. And so some of the low-cost providers I do not think are doing this. You just want to make sure that there is redundant systems in your deposition. Will an oath be administered? This one may vary depending on what you need and depending on your local rules, but it's important to know that the digital reporter will be able to administer an oath. Excuse me. Ugh. So they want to, we want to make sure that they're a notary in the state where the deposition is occurring. Which kind of takes us into our next one. Are they a notary? I think is a good question to ask. And then the last question is about security. Is there end-to-end security with the transcripts? And, depositions may contain social security numbers, addresses, bank account information, health information. I mean, the list goes on and on. You've got to make sure that it is being handled carefully every step of the way. Whether it's from coming off of a stenographer's machine or a digital reporter's machine, you want to make sure that your provider has the latest and greatest security so none of your data is floating out there, putting you or your clients at risk. So while that's not an entirely comprehensive list, I hope that it at least gets the conversation started with you and your deposition reporting provider to ensure that any deposition you have, no matter what the method, goes smoothly. All right, in this section, we have talked about different types of capture methods, and I thought it would be useful to show you which type of capture method is best applicable. Now, again, the gold standard is a stenographic reporter, and of course, if one is available, that's going to be the first choice every single time. Real-time feed from the reporter. Well, this one is the best fit for a stenographic reporter. And the big giveaway there was the real-time feed. If this was a deposition reporter, a digital reporter, you would not be able to get that real-time feed. So in this instance, stenographic reporter. Our second scenario is a simple one here, examination under oath. The adjuster would like to conduct several of these in a day. Well, this is actually a really good fit for a digital reporter. Because these are pretty straightforward depositions, not involving a lot of technical terms or complicated things, and most likely no need for real time, a digital reporter is a good fit, particularly because they can just do back-to-back throughout the day, as many as they need. Our next scenario is a workers' compensation case. Half Foods, get it, is being sued by an injured employee. The deposition will be short and routine with no need for a rough transcript or a real-time feed. Well, this would be a perfect scenario if there are no stenographic reporters available to use a digital reporter. Again, because there's no real-time or rough, I think it would be a really good fit for a digital reporter. Scenario number 4. This is a business litigation case in which a deposition of an employee to establish a chain of custody on some exhibits. However, at 5 p.m. the night before, you finally heard back from the employee regarding their availability. They said tomorrow's the only day they can be deposed, tomorrow or nothing. Of course, because of the labor shortage, there are no stenographic reporters available on such short notice. So, what do you do for this scenario? Well, if you want that deposition to go forward, I think a great alternative would be a digital reporter. While you may not be able to have real-time or rough, you're going to at least get that deposition taken care of. Here we go. In this one, piggy bank, or what did I have there? Banks R Us versus piggy bank. The deposition will be of a financial expert. It will cover complex topics. This is an important witness, so there will be at least 8 attorneys in the room. Well, this one is definitely a really good fit for a stenographic reporter. And really the key is those 8 attorneys in the room. If the potential for anyone to order rough or real time, you want to make sure that you have that stenographic reporter available. Transcript. And so for this one, particularly because they're not sure, I would recommend a stenographic reporter. So you can see a variety. I hope this exercise helps guide you in requesting the right type of reporter for the right job. And in actuality, it really shouldn't be your responsibility. It should be the reporting agency's responsibility to guide you in the best direction. But that said, I think it is useful for you as the attorney to know ultimately, who and how your deposition will be taken. And it's good to know which is the best fit for each scenario. And really, the biggest thing I hope you take away from this last section is that it is not a one-size-fits-all kind of service any longer. It really depends on the availability and the type of proceedings. All right. Let's now move on in our closing 15 minutes here to some of the logistics around this. Because this is new, I thought it would be helpful for you to see how these rooms set up, how the actual setups are conducted, and so you know what to expect. So first, let's take a look at a stenographic deposition. This one you're probably all familiar with. Generally, you have your witness. Next to them, you sit the reporter so they can swear them in and hear clearly. Across from the witness is the questioning counsel, and then all the other attorneys kind of file in down the table. When there's an exhibit, the questioning attorney will give it to the stenographic reporter, who will then apply an exhibit sticker and then give it to the witness. and then you can pass out courtesy copies to everybody else in the room. If there is a videographer needed, if it's a videotape deposition, everyone kind of just scoots down, and the videographer is generally right across from the witness to get a nice clear shot, and then everybody else, like I said, kind of just files in down the table. Okay, well, that was a stenographic reporting setup you're probably familiar with, but what about a digital reporter setup? Well, let's take a look. Well, you have your witness there, then you have your digital reporter sitting where the stenographic reporter would be, and then everything else is pretty much exactly the same. If there's an exhibit, the questioning attorney would give it to the digital reporter, who would mark that exhibit and then give it to the witness, and then, just like before, that attorney can hand out courtesy copies to all the different parties. If there is a videographer, which you can use a videographer in addition to a digital reporter, same exact thing. Everyone just kind of scoots down, and the videographer sets up right across from the witness. Now, I like to put this last one in here, virtual depositions. This one is become more and more popular as people don't want to have to travel for depositions. So I thought I would show you the setup for that. So here we have our deposition setting up. It can be either type of reporter. So in this instance, I just wrote reporter. Now, with a virtual deposition, though, not everybody's in the same room. In fact, they're usually spread out across the country, if not around the world. Now, generally, the reporter is with the witness, wherever the witness is, and that is so that they can swear them in and also, help them set up the equipment, things like that. But it doesn't have to be, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So to conduct the virtual deposition, everybody has a computer in front of them. People who want to be on camera, for instance, the witness and the questioning counsel have little webcams you can see on the top of their computer. But then other people in the virtual deposition, for instance, the co-counsel, the client, and opposing counsel, are in just listen-only mode. So they're just watching. Actually, excuse me. The opposing counsel is on camera as well. But the client and the co-counsel are in listen-only mode, which means they're just watching what's going on, which is a great way if you want to have somebody sit in on a deposition without actually having to be there. A huge use case we see for this is partners wanting to sit in on associates' depositions. They may not want to have to travel to go there, but they want to keep an eye on it, have them dial in via listen-only mode, and they're going to be able to just watch what's going on. This is what it actually will look like for the attorneys logged into their screen. You can see the big one there. The big picture is the witness, and then beneath are any of the other attorneys or parties dialed in. If they're on camera, they can be on listen-only mode. And because this is something customary, we actually build in the real-time feed there so you can actually see what the reporter is writing. But the other nice thing is that the reporter doesn't technically have to be with the witness. If you stipulate otherwise, again, that all-powerful stip, they can be anywhere. For instance, one scenario I was helping... oh, I skipped ahead of myself here. How do we deal with documents? And then I'll finish that scenario. Yeah, how do we share exhibits if everyone is virtual? Well, you will have to use paperless exhibits and some sort of paperless exhibit tool, but in that instance, usually the questioning attorney will upload his exhibit or her exhibit, and then copies will be pushed out to everybody, including the witness, using that digital exhibit platform. But now let's talk about that other setup. I kind of got ahead of myself here, but the witness it was stipulated that the questioning, the two attorneys would be in our Irvine, California conference room with the reporter, and the witness would be somewhere in the middle of India calling in from their home. There was no way that the attorneys could get there and back before trial, so they stipulated and that they were able to take the deposition right in the conference room in Irvine while the witness was somewhere in the middle of India dialing in from their home computer. So as you can see, virtual opens up a whole lot of possibilities. It's definitely something that has exploded in popularity. We've done these as far as, like I said, India, Australia, different war-torn zones when maybe people don't want to go there, which I don't blame them. We've also seen these as close as one conference room to the next because it was a divorce case that was so hostile they couldn't be in the same room at the same time. So a lot of different uses for this, but definitely something to kind of keep in your back pocket. You don't want to have to travel. Well, that takes us to our last 10 minutes. Let's see, are there any questions, Rebecca?
We do have a few questions. So,
okay, great.
One question we have is, does the ordering firm get an audio copy of the testimony?
That is a great question, and they do not. It works very similar to the way the stenographic reporters will generally record the proceedings using their machine just as a way to kind of go back and check things. It is their work product, and it is not available. Good question, though.
We also had a question about that oftentimes this person needs to set up like a court reporter for a state court hearing in California. So have digital reporters ever been used for court hearings?
Ooh, that is a great question, and I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't want to make a guess. So what I will do is I will check with our in-house counsel and find out, what we have done around that. So I will. If you could take a note, Rebecca, of who that was, I will respond to them directly once I get an answer. Good question, though.
Yes, I will do that. And what about, sorry. So can virtual depositions also be taken by a digital reporter?
Yes, great question, and yes, they can. You would simply have the digital reporter in place of the stenographic reporter. Now, keep in mind, you wouldn't be able to do the real time like I showed in that screenshot, but that's purely optional anyway, and you would be able to use a digital reporter. So, good question.
Okay, we have a lot of other. One question is, how is digital reporting being transcribed?
If I understand the question correctly, it's generally just done with a transcriptionist, and then this certificate in the end, you have a certificate of the digital reporter, and then you also have the certificate of the transcriptionist to ensure that it has been transcribed accurately. While you look through, okay. Yeah. While you look through those, I wanted to leave everybody with a few resources. So, we covered the 5 sections of code. I've included those links on the screen. To be honest, if you just Google them, it's really a lot easier. What we recommend too is just Google your state and deposition proceedings, or and usually it'll find it up, or it'll pull it up. But here are the actual links if you'd like them. And then these I really like to put up here. So one of the things that we spend a lot of energy and effort in is fostering more stenographic reporters. We work very closely with the National Court Reporter Association, being a platinum donor. There's also the American Association of Electronic Reporters and Transcribers. That's the association for digital reporters. But then there's another one down there that I haven't talked about called Project Steno. And this is something that is near and dear to our heart. This is to help get more students into stenography. So if you know people, young people, or people looking for a career change, or you yourself are interested in being a stenographic reporter, if you go to projectsteno.org, you can learn a lot more about where to go to school, how to learn it, and we're very active in that. So we're doing everything we can to increase the number of stenographic reporters out there, but in the meantime, we're also realist in ensuring that your depositions are covered. And that really was the goal of today's presentation, to look at the available options that are out there. And so to close, I thought we'd bring it full circle and take a look at the process again. We'll take a look at the same thing we did with the up there you see at the top, the stenographic reporter, but now let's take a look at the digital reporter's process, and we'll kind of compare the two. So first you have both the reporter accepting the assignment. Now, most digital reporters are also independent contractors, and they have a mobile app that they would be able to accept the assignment. Day of the deposition, it would either be written in steno on a stenographic machine, or it would be digitally recorded by a digital reporter. And then after that, while the reporter's rough transcript goes to a scopist, the digital recording from the digital reporter would go to a transcriber, who would then transcribe the proceeding. Once both of those are finished, they're sent back to the respective reporter to ensure that everything has been transcribed accurately. Those are then securely sent into the reporting company's office, where those files are created, all the various file types, things like that, including printing out and binding the official transcript and the certified copies, and then those are put into a box and shipped out to you. And so you can see that there isn't a huge difference on what on the process. And I think it's really important to remember that at the end you still receive a certified transcript. A transcript that will serve as a verbatim record of what happened in the deposition room, which I think really brings us full circle. The purpose of a deposition is not to focus on the method on how it's captured, but rather the content of that transcript and how it will help you tell your story, whether it's in a motion or ultimately even in trial. The landscape in the industry are changing. We hope this class brought some of the aspects of that change to light for you. Like any industry, there will be an adjustment period, but then I'm sure everybody will return to business as usual. Until then, we will keep a very close eye on this topic and continue to bring you classes like this that will help all of us adapt in this ever-changing field. Thank you all very much for attending today's CLE. Now, don't go ahead and close just yet. I'm going to jump to the next slide here with a little housekeeping, and then we will do that survey. Some of the states do require a CLE code. Now, this is not the course number or anything like that. This isn't what you're going to apply, on your CLE paperwork. This is basically to prove that you were paying attention. So if your state requires it, the CLE code is update notice. As soon as I am done here, I'm going to close this webinar. That survey should pop up. If the survey does not pop up, go ahead and email us at webinar@veritext.com. So right there in the middle, hopefully you see that. Also, after 48 hours, if you don't receive anything, you can go ahead and email webinar@veritext.com. Thank you all so much for attending today's webinar. We hope to see you on a future webinar. And if you have any other questions, go ahead and email us. And like I said, if there was any questions we missed today, I'll go back through the whole question pod and address those directly to you. Thank you all very much, and have a wonderful day.